Today's lecture is cardiac output, and then ideally we'll have some time to get to intrinsic conduction system. Sorry for the terrible segue, ladies and gentlemen, viewers at home that aren't aware of what I'm talking about. Here's the formula. Cardiac output,
Heart rate times stroke rate.
yes, equals heart rate
Base. That's all I know.
So here's the abbreviation, not that you didn't figure that out. Units, though. Let's talk about units. What would the unit for heart rate be? Beats per minute, and that is standard. That is how that's how it's measured when you're at the doctor's office, and that's how it's measured in the hospital, beats per minute. And this is a really important number because it does give us an indication of, or one piece of data with regard to someone's cardiovascular health, and can tell us when things are really wrong, if they're really high or really low. Okay, what do you think the unit for stroke volume is?
Milliliters per minute.
Milliliters per, it's not going to be per minute. Okay, this is talking about the stroke. Let me explain. Basically, we're saying how much blood is inside of this ventricle here before it squeezes it out. So, yes, good. Milliliters per beat then. So, stoichiometry geniuses, tell me, what would cancel out here? Beats would cancel out in this multiplication, therefore cardiac output is measured in milliliters per minute. Now, heart rate's pretty easy to get a hold of here, okay? What you're going to do, we'll do this together, is on your wrist here, you're going to have a pulse that you can feel. Now, I want to be very clear in the distinction between these two things. Pulse is not the same thing as heartbeat. Heartbeat is the sound, the heartbeat that you hear is the sound of the what? The valves closing, okay? Pulse is the result of the force of blood being thrown out of the heart, ejected from the heart. It causes your blood vessels to do this because your blood vessels are elastic. So every time your heart contracts, it does this to your blood vessels. So that's what the pulse is. You're feeling that expansion and that recoil of that surge of blood that goes through there. You cannot feel it in a vein. You can only feel it in an artery. You're like, well, I see a vein right on. I want to put my finger on the vein. You can do that, but nothing's going to happen. Because your arteries have about 120 millimeters of mercury of pressure in them. Okay? Your veins have about 5. Okay? You're not going to feel that surge. Don't feel in the middle here. Those are just a bunch of tendons with a nerve or two stuck in there. You're going to come over this way. And you're going to feel, press down with 2 fingers right here. And you should feel a pulse. Okay? Right next to what bone of your forearm? Radius. You're feeling the radial artery. Okay? The radial artery. So, what we're going to do is we're going to count. I'll tell you when to start counting and tell you when to stop counting. Hold on just a second. I'm trying to find an online stopwatch here. Yay, Googles. Okay. Find that pulse. Okay. Feel that pulse? Yeah, find the it's the squishy part between the bony things. You're exactly right. Yeah. It's right where it is. Right in there. Okay. Are we ready? And start your count. Try to do this simultaneously. Now. Stop. Okay. That was for 15 seconds. What are we going to multiply your number by? 4, so we can get a full minute. So whatever number you counted, I want you to multiply that by 4. All right. Mine was 15, so I multiplied that by 4 and ended up with 60. Okay. Generally speaking, and this is just a generalization, girls are going to have a slightly higher pulse than boys at rest, but also athletes in season and condition will have a lower pulse at rest than they do when they're not in season, because their heart and lungs are better conditioned. This number, beats per minute, it's better if it's a little bit lower. It means that things are working efficiently. But again, it's too low is bad, too high is bad. Okay, let me tell you what the average is here. Okay, the average is 75 beats per minute. Okay. And truthfully, the most accurate way to get the beats per minute, to get the pulse or the heart rate, is to do it for a full minute. I think that's actually a requirement if you're really actually going to record that stuff. But for our purposes today, it's fine. The average stroke volume is 70 milliliters per beat. So on average, your heart is ejecting 70 milliliters at a time. Okay. That would give you, if you multiply those two together, 5,250 milliliters per minute. Numbers are just numbers unless you really think about them. I could also write this number as 5.25 what? Liters per minute. And if I do that, picture this in your head. In the last minute of you sitting there, 2.5 2-liter bottles of blood went through your heart. If you were exercising, double that. Okay? This is at rest. If you're exercising, you can double that quantity. So 5 full 2-liter bottles of blood would have gone through your heart in 1 minute of exercise. It's an incredible quantity that your heart so efficiently pumps. All right? So lots of things can cause this to increase or decrease. Stress can cause your heart rate to increase. Caffeine, one of my favorite things, causes your heart rate to increase. Let's see, at rest it should decrease. There's a lot of different factors that can do that. Exercise. Now, when I was talking about efficiency in heart and lungs, okay, the more time you have in between beats, the more time your ventricles have to fill up. So that's how the efficiency can play off of one another. Lance Armstrong, you guys remember who that was? Not the trumpet player, not the moon guy, okay? That's the bicycle guy. Trumpet guy. Louis Armstrong. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. That guy.
Okay.
All right, so his resting heart rate, won the Tour de France a number of times. His resting heart rate in the peak condition, 32 beats per minute. His heart only had to beat every other second or so because his heart and lungs were so efficient. But he was still somewhere around this range, which means his ventricles were filling up to about twice the quantity that ours are at rest. It's pretty incredible. All right. Now, there's one more concept that I want to talk about today, and it's this. This is the intrinsic conduction system. I messed this up pretty bad earlier today. I tried to make a video, then I deleted it because it was awful. It was terrible. So let me see if I do any better today. This is basically the electrical system of the heart. This is what makes the heart beat, folks. It's nerves that activate muscles, and this is a group of nerves, and it's intrinsic because it's all within the heart itself. Your heart beats on its own. Doesn't need the brain to tell it to beat. It's going to beat on its own. It does, however, need the brain to tell it to speed up or slow down. Moreover, it needs the brain stem to do that. An area of the brain stem called the medulla oblongata is going to tell your heart rate to increase or decrease and so on and so forth. Okay, but the heart will beat on its own for as long as it has oxygen and nutrients. Okay, so here we go. A little wider here at the top, coming to a point, quote unquote, at the bottom. There's the outline of our heart here. Okay. Now, we're going to draw a line across here very simply to separate the atria. It is definitely more involved than that. And then we're going to draw the wall that exists in between those two ventricles. What's that called? Yes, the septum. Note that I made the muscle tissue of the left side much thicker than the muscle tissue on the right because form follows function. All right. Here's what we're going to draw. There's a little bundle of nerves up here. Actually, it's a little node, which is like a collection of nerve endings and cell bodies and things like that. Okay. We're going to draw another one here. We're going to have a lot of different leads connecting or nerves connecting between the two. All right. Then we're going to go from here. And we're going to have like a big lump right in there. Kind of a wide nerve bundled track right there. Then those two are going to split off into these branches right here. And these branches at the end are going to go crazy all over the place. I know, it's not easy to draw. And I'm doing a terrible job of it. Okay. Their names, ladies and gents. Start with this one right here. It's called the SA node. Okay? SA stands for sinoatrial. Sinoatrial node. Its job is that it's the pacemaker.
Is that S-I-N?
Sinoatrial. Sinoatrial node. Now, you've heard of people having artificial pacemakers. We all have pacemakers in our hearts. This is the real one. This is the guy that sets the pace and says, beat, beat, beat. And it'll get stimulation from one or more nerves, or from actually two different nerves. One that would tell it to slow down and one that would tell it to speed up. The one that tells it to slow down is the vagus nerve, which is weird. Just think fast, vagus. Anyway, but it basically increases or decreases the rate that this thing says go, go. Because the signal starts here. Then it follows the tracks down here, this pathway in between the two, okay? That's not a great draw there. Okay, it's called the internodal pathway. Why is it called that? Yeah, it's in between the two nodes here, okay? So this node right here and this node right here. Now, that node right there is directly in between the atrium and the ventricle, which is why this node is known as the AV node, which stands for atrioventricular. Atrioventricular node. The significance of this one is as soon as this node is activated, it causes the atria to contract. Makes the atria contract. Okay. I feel bad here because these are really pretty close together. There's not necessarily a bend in here. I tried to draw a two-dimensional drawing of a three-dimensional structure, and I didn't do a very good job. But then there is like this bundle that occurs right after that, right here. This bundle. It's called the AV bundle. there is just a little bit of what would be kind of a delay that occurs in here, which is why your atria contract and then your ventricles lift up, lift up, lift up. You have this, there is kind of a delay. It's almost like a resistor, if you will. In old school textbooks, they call this bundle of His, H-I-S. Like, it looks like the word his, but Hiss was the scientist that I think originally discovered this. So if you see that, I want you to know that that's what that is. Then there's these branches that come off the bundle right there. They're called bundle branches. Then finally, what happens is these nerve endings just expand all the way out throughout and permeate all this muscle tissue. And these crazy fibers that are going every which way, they're called Purkinje fibers. And they make the ventricles contract. Purkenje. Make ventricles contract.
Is that an N or an R?
Where, yeah, this one right here? Purkinje. Yeah. Boy, I hope I spelled that right. Let me look it up real quick.
They had it spelled like Kinji.
Oh boy, it's an I. I'm a doofus. Put a dot on top of that. Still not as bad as I failed last hour. Okay, Purkinje, not Kenji. Sorry. I misspelled my fibers. All right. So here's what happens. The nerve impulse starts here, travels down the internodal pathway, activates the AV node. That causes the atria to contract and squeeze their blood down into the ventricles. Okay? That nerve impulse then travels down, just a bit of a delay here at the AV bundle, travels down the bundle branches to the Purkinje fibers, which cause all the ventricles to contract and squeeze inward and up. Like that. So that's the whole thing. So SA node, internodal pathway, AV node, AV bundle, bundle branches, Purkinje fibers. And that's what makes your heart beat. These are the nerves and nerve bundles that they use the word action potential, and if you haven't studied anything about neurology yet, don't worry about that. Just know that it means that the nerves are firing. That's what an action potential is nerves firing. So that's what's going on here. All right.